It's President Trump has been indicted 4 times in the last 5 months. It's surreal. Politically, it's sort of like a zombie apocalypse. I mean, we're not talking about a DoorDash driver here. He's a former president of the United States, and he is a current active candidate for president of the United States, running against a party whose 4 prosecutors have indicted him. And regardless of what you think about President Trump, this is unprecedented. It's going to really test our political system. I mean, this is the sort of thing that happens in countries whose Powerball jackpot is 387 chickens and a goat. I mean, we don't do that in America.
Stay classy, Senator Kennedy. I mean, nothing says Trump innocence like some good old-fashioned bigotry and white supremacy. No wonder these clowns have been standing by Tucker Carlson for so long.
Iraq is a crappy place filled with a bunch of, semi-literate primitive monkeys. But I just have zero sympathy for them or their culture, a culture where people just don't use toilet paper or forks.
How could you salvage Iraq at this point?
I don't, it's beyond our control. I mean, if somehow the Iraqis decided to behave like human beings or something.
Yes, the racism is obvious. But back to Senator Kennedy here, saying that these prosecutors that somehow belong to the Democratic Party are destroying our political system.
This is the first time, but I can assure you it won't be the last. There are thousands of prosecutors out there in America, Republican and Democrat, very ambitious. And now that the glass has been broken, I worry about what that means for the rule of law in our system.
So Kennedy claims to think that these prosecutors are destroying the rule of law in favor of the Democratic Party. But in the same damn breath, is promoting the idea that Republican prosecutors will do the same. Doesn't that make your preferred prosecutors just as bad, if not worse, than the ones you claim are tearing down the political system? A system that has Donald Trump's vice president railing against him like this.
I've said many times I had hoped the judgment about those days would be left to the American people and to history. But in these times, I want to say I think it's important that we hew to first principles and that we tell the truth to the American people. The first principles are these. No one is above the law. Secondly, despite what the former president and his allies have said for now more than 2.5 years and continue to insist to this very hour, the Georgia election was not stolen, and I had no right to overturn the election on January 6th. It's a hard truth. My friend Governor Brian Kemp said it well yesterday. He said, for nearly 3 years, anyone with evidence of fraud has failed to come forward.
But yeah, that's Mike Pence, who's now running for president, so his opinion must not mean anything. Well, how's about this Republican, the former lieutenant governor of Georgia?
Well, I hope my testimony gets the facts, as they are and helps to continue to paint a real and honest picture. But politically speaking, this is a pivot point for this country to do something more than just stew on the 2020 election cycle, right? We're either going to, as Republicans, take our medicine and realize the election wasn't rigged. Donald Trump was the worst candidate ever in the history of the party, even worse than Herschel Walker.
I'm sick and tired of them wanting to teach CTR in school, critical race theory. Can you tell me what that means?
As long as we make this about the three-ring circus called Donald Trump, we're going to lose every time. And you don't have to go any further than Georgia to see that play out.
By the way, though, this clown show that was Herschel Walker's campaign was also brought to you by Donald Trump. It really makes you wonder, though, which one of the Democrats' prosecutors convinced Jeff Duncan that Donnie isn't the second coming of Christ?
You know what, Poppy? I'm going to be critical of my party. I'm going to be critical of those that are running for president in my party. I'm going to be critical of governors and senators. They know the right thing to do here. The right thing to do is to call Donald Trump out for lying, misleading us, and taking our Republican Party straight to the ditch. That's what's happened here. And until we all want to stand up and speak as loudly and clearly as we possibly can that the Republican Party needs to use this as a pivot point. But if we just make it about Donald Trump, we're going to continue to be embarrassed, and our campaign speeches in the Republican Party are going to be from courthouse steps. We need to have everybody running for president stand up together, not because their consultants tell them it makes sense today, not because it doesn't feel like a short-term sugar high, but get up there and tell Donald Trump to get out of this race for the good of the party and for the good of the country.
Senator Kennedy thinks so little of Republican voters, he'll continue to stick his face in front of cameras, reeling off what he thinks is witty Southern jargon to defend Trump against these very serious charges.
They're beating on him like he stole Christmas. But he's tough. He's tough as a pine knot, and the man's got guts. He's got oranges the size of beach balls.
But if their savior is hit with some convictions, reality always trumps hokey one-liners.
To make the point to Republican primary voters, you've got to say, think about the potential that if you vote for Donald Trump, by the time we come to our convention in August, he could be a convicted felon. So do you really want to vote for Donald Trump, even if you don't mind voting for a convicted felon for president? And I think a lot more Republicans will be bothered by that than people think. The broader public is certainly going to be bothered from it, and it could be catastrophic for the Republican Party.